I want to welcome everybody here. I am Bart Loeser. I am the director of our continuing education program, one of my little pet projects that I am passionate about, because my passion is teaching people simple tools for getting better results when working with other people. So essentially, I love teaching people about interpersonal skills and how to herd those cats, how to get the results you need from other people, even when they don't think that your priorities should be their priorities. How many of us have been leaders of the club and you've assigned people tasks and they've agreed to do the tasks, and then life gets in the way and then they have an excuse or they blame something for why they didn't get it done, and everything's okay now. We're all happy now, right, Myra? Because it wasn't their fault. But it still didn't get done.
Yeah.
I face this with one of my clubs right now when I said, okay, we're about 3 months out before the end of the year. This is the time we really have to do the big push to get our membership up. And we actually lost some members in April and didn't gain enough new members. And thus we were now down to 13 members and 12 members, and we needed to get up to 18 by the end of the year. So 3 weeks ago, I sent another note. Hey guys, just wanted to let you know, we haven't brought any new members in the last couple of months, and we could be a distinguished club. Unfortunately, we don't qualify because we're not meeting our membership restraints. We have to bring our membership up, and we have 3 weeks. What's the chance of bringing in 7 new members? That's probably not going to happen without throwing everything aside and putting all of our energies into that one thing. And then I had to ask the club, is it that important at this point? It was important 3 or 4 months ago, but now that this has become a crisis, is this really that important, or could we just start over July 1st with a new setting and saying, okay, at this point, let's make sure that this new year will be a successful one, since last year was not so successful. Sometimes we have to approach situations like that. So how do we deal with accountability and, more importantly, delegation? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in the program that I've developed that I think can be helpful in showing us how we can get better results. And I want you guys to feel free asking me questions as we go, but I am actually a professional trainer. This is what I do for a living, where I go out and I work with corporate teams, individuals as well as management teams, and just about anyone at any level, to help them be more effective in the areas of team building, leadership development, communication, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, productivity, all of these issues when you're working with other people. Do other people get in the way of you being as productive as you want to be? How many of you might agree that sometimes you have to depend on other people to be successful? And how many of you just do not trust other people? And it is about building trust. So we're going to talk about how to get better results as officers, whether you're an officer of your club or you're an officer of the district. It's all about delegating so that we can be more successful. But I want to get a little bit of your feedback. Let's just start for, what are we all doing with our clubs? What are we all going for? What is the end vision, the mission of our clubs? In the end, our goal is to provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Now, this is a lot to take in because it's a lot of pieces here. We want to support people. We want to be positive. We want to help people to learn, but also empower them to do it their own way, which can be challenging. We want them to develop the skills of communication and leadership, but again, they get to set the pace. And how often as leaders do we find ourselves pushing people because the way they've set their pace is not working for us? So we're going to come up with some better answers on how we can achieve this. But if your club wants to achieve these goals, we have to find what's going to be the most effective way we can make that happen. So let's look at, first of all, getting our jobs done and encouraging others who have specific jobs. How do we help them get that done? If you're the president of a club, your job is not to be doing the other people's jobs. Your job is to make sure that all the work is getting done, that the tasks are getting done. You're the task driver. And yet you don't want to do it in a way that will burn people out. Are we a volunteer organization? Do our volunteers have to do what they said they were going to do? They don't feel particularly obligated sometimes, especially if there's an excuse or something they can use to blame other situations or people for why they didn't get it done. But in the end, if we became officers, we made agreements to what we were going to achieve and how we were going to achieve it. Now, I have to admit that when I became a division director, 5 years after I got into Toastmasters, was the first time I got the answer in my head to the question, why should I care about the DCP, the Distinguished Club Program? I didn't understand what it was about until I'd played almost every officer position and was now a division director. And that was the first time I realized what the whole purpose of the DCP is. Can anybody share with me your vision of what you think the Distinguished Club Program is about? Yes, Kevin. I see your hand, and anyone
It's
else?
less about, it's a carrot, not a stick, I guess is the best thing for me to say about it, is that it is a way for us to see that we are doing a good job in our clubs, not because Toastmasters International wants more money or more members and more clubs and all of that, but it's a way for us to make sure that we are providing for our members the very best experience that we can. And we have these metrics that we measure with the Distinguished Club Program to help us create a great environment where people can meet their individual goals to their best ability.
Excellent, Kevin. So if I could summarize, what I think you're saying is take the carrot off of the stick and then hit people with the stick. No, poke people with the stick. You don't want to hit, but poke. No. So our job, if we're going to have successful clubs, is we have to have some way to measure what is success. At work, if you're going to be successful in your job, there has to be a way to define what is success. What are these metrics, these measures that we're going to use that say your club is strong, your club we don't have to worry about, your club is getting the job done, your club meets almost all the challenges that we hold out there for each of our clubs each year. And the metrics are very clear. There are education metrics. If our club is meeting certain educational goals, we know that people are doing the work that should be moving them further in their education as leaders and as speakers. But as a club, there's also administrative goals. Toastmasters needs people to pay their dues on time, so we have to have goals for and incentives on how to get clubs to do that. We have goals for building new clubs, because what is the average percentage of member loss over a given year on average? Who can tell me? Anyone other than Kevin? I know Kevin knows.
I'd say 50%.
It's close to that, and sometimes I've seen it be more than that, but it actually, the average is slightly less. Kevin, what is it? It's 40%, right, Kevin? So I see you saying it. Yeah, so
Sorry
40%.
about that, 40.
No matter how good your club is, no matter how strong your club is, no matter how many, every single one of your members absolutely loves that club, 40% of your club members will drop out over a course of a year. So they encourage you to replace that 40%. So if the average club has 20 members, you have to bring in at least 8 new members, so they have some incentives. Bring in 4 new members, you get a point that can help us lead to being more successful, achieving that DCP, which has a maximum of 10 points you could get. 2 of those points are bringing in 8 new members. Now that's the maximum, but who can tell me what the minimum number of points we have to go for just to be a distinguished club? You can hold your hand up if you know. It's 5. So you have to earn a minimum of 5 or a maximum of 10 points. And when, Roberta, do you think our clubs should start working out how we're going to do that over the year? When's the best time to think about that?
I'd say we never stop. You kind of just start in any day that you're in and just keep going. But the year provides a nice marker to measure progress.
Exactly. That's why we have the year, so that no matter how successful or unsuccessful you were in the previous year, you get to start over. And so July 1st is a chance to start over with strengthening our clubs. So we want to try behaviors that I think Roberta just explained. We should be consistently doing that all the time, building and trying to achieve these goals. But each one of us plays a different role. So every one of the officers has a different role of helping their club achieve excellence. And so based on the requirements of those individual roles, we have specific performance expectations of the president, the vice president of education, vice president membership, vice president PR. We also have our secretary, our treasurer, as well as sergeant at arms. There are specific requirements that are needed to help your club become strong, stay strong, and achieve its goals, but they have to stay on task. And sometimes when we attend the TLIs, how many of you have attended some TLIs but still left there not quite sure what the big picture is? Literally, it was 5 years into my Toastmasters experience as a division director when I was that I became aware that, wow, I now understand what the DCP is about and why we should try to go for it. Because we just want to be a club where we're not always worrying, that we can stay on top of things, that we're healthy and growing and strong. And the DCP essentially measures what that is. Wendy, you have your hand up. A question or comment?
I was agreeing that I've been to a TLI and not known what the big picture is. And Beth said, what's a TLI? It's a Toastmasters Leadership Institute, otherwise known as officer training.
Exactly. It used to be officers training, and now we call it Toastmasters Leadership Institute, which not only is specific to the training you get as officers, but we try to provide additional information that can help you as leaders. And it does tend to change between TLIs. So it's not always the same information, and you don't want it the same. Can anyone tell me why we want to change it up?
So you'll keep coming.
We need you to keep coming, because every time you go to one of these TLIs, you will learn something new. You will realize something you didn't realize before. This is a process. It's not a project where you just master a skill, say, I'm going to be the president of this club, and by the time I'm finished with my year, I will know everything I needed to know about running a strong club and being a great leader. No, you're going to keep learning. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to keep trying. You just keep falling forward, moving forward, learning and growing. That's what we do as leaders. And so that's why if you say, I've been to a training, and I've been to at least 10 TLIs in my life as a Toastmaster, and taught at an additional 10 or 15. So I've attended as an officer alone, as well as taught, which is the next thing you want to do after you've actually been through a couple of them, is you should be up there teaching this to other people. So we're going to focus on how we can do this, but I have a question for everybody, because clear communication is the key to delegation. Getting the information out of your head into the head of someone else is the key to all delegation. What gets in the way? Who can share with me what gets in the way of clearly communicating? Can anyone tell me? I know Wendy's saying this up.
Different styles of communicating.
There's very different styles. What people hear may not be what you said. People make a lot of assumptions. How many of us stop listening after we think we know what they're saying, and then we don't listen anymore? And is it true that we understood that? Or, like all communication is only assumption unless you've done one thing. What's the only thing you can do to make sure you're not assuming that is what they meant?
Repeat what they said.
You have to repeat back your understanding to the person who communicated it to you, so they can say, yes, that's what I'm saying. If you do not do that, all communication is assumption. And yet, how often do we repeat back what we're hearing to make sure that what we heard is what they meant?
Very rarely.
Rarely. So one thing I want us all to be doing as leaders is to get into the habit of repeating back your understanding so that you know that what you're understanding is what they meant, so that they can agree to it. Now, let me ask someone like Hattie, let me ask you, if that's true, then do you also need to encourage them to repeat back their understanding to you when you're communicating to them?
Yes, because you'll find out they heard you differently than what you said.
Yes, so now there's one little problem, Hetty, and I want you to solve this problem for me. What might you be thinking if I ask you to repeat back what I just told you?
That I can't remember it, for one thing.
Okay, one is I'm maybe fearful that I wasn't listening closely enough, or that I maybe can't remember it. Another thing, how many of you might start thinking, why do I need to repeat this back? You just told me this. You asked me, like Michelle might have asked me, Bart, do you understand? And we'll say, yeah, I understand. Now, is that true, Michelle, or am I making an assumption?
I would say it's the assumption and before the confirmation, but the
Yes.
confirmation can sometimes feel heavy-handed.
But Michelle, if I ask you to repeat back what I just told you, what might you be thinking right now? And keep it clean.
Do you think I'm an idiot?
You think I'm an idiot? Do you think I'm stupid? I'm not an idiot. You know, why are you doing this to me? And you think you're being attacked, right? So does Michelle understand the purpose of why I'm asking her to do this? Does she get my intention? No. How many of us sometimes don't understand why people are doing what they're doing or why they're asking us to do something? When is it important to make your intention clear to someone of why you're going to ask them to do something? When's the best time? Hetty, what do you think?
At the beginning.
At the very beginning. So habit number 2 in communication, always make your intent clear in the beginning so they get the context of why you're communicating with them, why they should listen, what they should be listening for. So if I were to ask Michelle, Michelle, would you mind doing me a favor that after I go into what I'm going to ask you to do, could you just repeat back your understanding of this so that I can make sure we're on the same page? Would she be more willing to do that? And at the end, if I ask her to repeat it back, would she have any problems with it? No. And would she be listening more carefully, perhaps? Yes. So get into the habit of communicating clearly. And the only way to do that is you have to get in the habit of repeating back your understanding to see if they can agree with you and ask them to do the same when it's important. So that's the only way that we can know that we're universally understood and in agreement. Because how many of us have ever thought we had an agreement with somebody and only later they could say, I don't remember saying that. I don't remember agreeing to that. This is another reason why when you do have an agreement with someone, get it in writing. This is what that's a good email. Send an email to reiterate what we talked about and agreed upon. So I'll send you the email so that if you say, I don't remember saying that, well, let me just send you this email here just to see if we can confirm your understanding. And the last thing we're going to focus on today is how to set goals that are truly smart, which is setting a goal that meets the parameters or the metrics of an effective or what will be a successful goal. If it doesn't meet those parameters of the SMART approach, you can't be successful. And raise your hands if you've heard of the SMART approach to goal setting. I know when we, as clubs, want to come up with a club success plan, which is essentially our plan for how our club will be successful this year, we want to put that in writing because now we are committing to this and everyone in the club can see what we're committing to and when. So it's a helpful thing to have a plan, but also make sure that that SMART plan is in writing. So we're going to go through just a little bit about what SMART focuses on in just a moment, but I want to ask you guys, delegation is important and yet people fear delegation and sometimes don't do it so well. There are lots of good reasons to delegate, but I want to get some feedback from you guys on each of these. One of the best reasons to delegate is so that it allows you to focus on higher priorities. How many of you often feel overwhelmed by the amount of work you're trying to get done in a day? I know Wendy is, I am, Kevin, Eddie. Yes, all of us have a tremendous amount of work that we're trying to get done, and there's never enough time in the day. I could recommend that you could stop sleeping and stop eating because then you'll have more time. but how many of you would agree that might get in the way of your ability to be productive? You might be able to do that for a day or so, but it doesn't work long term. So you're not going to be able to get it all done. And there are some very important things you must make time to get to. Because how many of you sometimes have a day that ends and you wonder, why did I even get out of bed today? You feel like you just couldn't get anything done. You're constantly being interrupted all the time. And the fact is, we've got to get things done. Well, one thing I recommend if you want to be more effective in your life is you can do what Stephen Covey had recommended in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is you must carve out 1 hour out of your day where you're not going to allow interruptions by phone. You turn your phone off, you turn your email off, you turn your notifications off, and you focus for 1 hour getting the things that you had set into your to-do list as the most important things I must get done today, my highest priorities, and you get as much of that done in that 1 hour period. And for everything else, you have to set it aside until that's over. The only time you ever let anything get in your way is if a crisis happens. Of course, crises always happen, don't they, Kevin? And what do you do when a crisis interferes with your priority hour? So you got to take care of that. What do you do the moment the crisis is over?
Go back to your priority hour.
You don't allow anything else to get in your way. You go right back to what you promised yourself you would get done. And you get that stuff done 1 hour. It could be a half hour in the morning, a half hour in the afternoon, whatever. And then you do something to go celebrate that you got it done. If you do this almost every day, you could actually end every day being able to say this. And Wendy, I want you to be able to say this every day. You know, I couldn't get everything done I needed to get done, but at least I got the most important things done. How would you feel about your day if that was almost every single day?
I would
And that's not just
faint.
Wendy I'm talking to, right? How would you feel, Wendy?
Faint at the end of the day if that were true.
Yeah. So you just can't let a lot of the other stuff get in the way, and not at least for that 1 hour. You don't allow it during that period. So, because if we're going to achieve more, we have to maintain our focus on the high priorities, but that also means things that are lesser priorities, things that are less important, even if they're urgent, do not do it yourself. Get someone else to do it. Delegate it. So you want to distribute your workload more evenly and fairly, because how often do we sometimes get out of balance or our teams get out of balance, and we need someone to redistribute things so people aren't burning out. That's another reason why we as leaders want to delegate. So one of the things, which is the most important, or I would say the most overwhelming job of officers and Toastmasters? I know you could say all of them, but which one of the officers are the most overwhelmed?
VPE.
VPE. Clearly, the VPE has more responsibilities than anyone else. They should be delegating those responsibilities to other people. Somebody should be watching the pathways programs for your members and how they're using it. Are they using it? And is it effective? It should not be the VPE. You got too much other stuff to do. The VPE also should get somebody else to be in charge of the mentorship program. And you get someone else in your club to be the mentorship chair. And you have little committees that help you to take care of these things and make sure it gets done. Your job as the VPE is just to make sure they're doing their job. How much easier would the VPE job be if you were really good at delegating to other members of your club? Because who's the member of the club who gets paid the most for doing their job in Toastmasters? Who gets paid the most?
Nobody.
Nobody. Which means if I'm working this hard as the president or the VPE or the VPM, somebody else could be doing some of this work too. And you want to train your members to know that they're not the only ones who should be doing some of the work around here. We need to distribute this workload more evenly and fairly. Everybody give me an amen if you would agree.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes. It also teaches them to be better leaders, because it's not just up to the officers to ensure the club is going to be successful. It's everyone's job. Next, to demonstrate trust and value. To me, this is the most important reason to delegate, because in the working world, I always tell people there's one thing you can do as a leader that works magic on your staff that gets them to follow you almost like it's a cult. And this is what it is. You make your people feel valued for their efforts. The better you are at that, the better they're willing to follow you blindly and help out anywhere. It's the biggest ability to build a favor bank because people want to feel like they matter. If you are good as a leader at making people feel like they matter and what they contribute, or for my English friends, contribute, what they give to the club matters, make them feel valued. And delegating tasks to them says, I trust you and appreciate you, and it gives you a great opportunity to recognize them for the work they do, to praise them, which also builds confidence. Some of your club members are here to build their confidence. One reason why you delegate little tasks to them that they can achieve is so they can succeed and you can recognize them for that success, which then keeps them be willing to do more, step out of the box. And as you guys all know, delegating helps to build skills. Have you ever tried to delegate, Hetty, to someone who said to you, oh, I'm not really good at that. That's not one of my strengths.
Oh, many times.
And that's precisely, you want to delegate that task to them, because do people need to learn every one of the skills that every one of the officers, their jobs give those opportunities to learn?
Yes, they need to learn each one, and they need to be mentored in that. That's why you ask them to help you.
Exactly. So you have mentors, because you don't even have to be the one teaching them or mentoring them. Get someone else at the club to mentor them. That's what the past officers should be doing for the next officers, is mentoring those officers for at least the next 3 or 4 months so that they're off to a good start. So, and you want to strengthen your bench. This is a term that's baseball term. You want everyone who's playing on your team to be equally good at almost everything, right?
Yes.
Because how many of us as leaders would like to step down and let others shine and have your club still be strong?
Yes.
Well, then we have to get better at pushing those little birdies out of the nest, even if they want to cling to the straw and say, hey, I'm not really good at that. I'm just going to stay here and do just what I know how to do well. It's like, no, I'm going to throw you into a new office and try a new skill because you're here to learn. That's what we do in Toastmasters. And if you fail, that's okay. You can fail as long as you learn from it, right? And the 3 steps from learning anything, you got to follow these 3 steps, is you have to notice the failure, because if you don't notice it, you're not going to learn anything. The second thing is you got to own the fact that you made choices that resulted in your failure. You cannot actually blame anyone else or have an excuse for your failure. You just want to notice it. You want to own those choices you made, and you want to do it differently. Fix it with some new skill. So teach people to notice it, own it, and fix it, and you can build up everyone in your club. That is another part of our job as leaders. Any questions about the reasons to delegate? Everybody should be delegating more. And I know before some of you got onto this call, you're probably thinking, well, I'm just not really, I don't feel good about delegating. I'm not fairly comfortable with it. I have to do it all myself, right, Michelle? Because it's not going to be done right if I don't do it.
It won't be done right if I do all of it.
Okay, that's right. So, and it can't be you and shouldn't be you, because you're not going to be around forever. We have to build succession in our leaders, don't we? So that's what this is all about. That's another reason to delegate. Now, here's what gets in the way of delegation. First of all, often we lack the resources. There's not enough time. How many of you say, I don't have enough time to delegate. I have to show them how to do it and explain it to them. I might as well just do it myself. And I know it's not just Michelle. So it's the rest of us too. So you have to make the time or get somebody else who will take the time to get this work done. You need to find the people. This is why we need to build our clubs up, because 4 or 5 people cannot run a club. You need enough people. And I'd say the goal is get yourself 20 people into your club. So make it a top goal. My goal for my Pride Club is right now we're at 13 people. We will be at 20 by the end of September. We will be. I will make that happen. We're working on that now. And the new crew that's coming in is going to make that happen. And we have 3 months to do it. How many of you think 3 months can do it to bring in 7 new members? We've already got plenty of prospects, so we could actually work on those alone. But yeah, so another reason why we tend not to delegate is we don't trust that they're going to do a good job. We sometimes don't have faith in other people's ability or willingness to get it done. This is where accountability is important. You need to be able to hold people accountable, but also the reason why we delegate is to demonstrate we trust them. How does it feel to you when someone doesn't trust that you can do a good job? You like that feeling? when they don't trust you? No. Do you love the feeling when people said, I can count on you? We love that feeling. So you want to be able to count on people, which means we have to build our faith. And I'm going to show you a simple method. It's a secret on how to easily trust people when you delegate. It's really not hard. So I'm going to show you. It's simple and it's easy. Number 3, there is a fear. We fear failure. We worry that, well, if I give this to them and they don't do well, we will fail. It's not the end of the world. That's what Toastmasters is all about. If your club ends up not being distinguished this time, the question would be, what are we going to do to make sure next year that does not happen? Because right now, how much time do we have to finish out the year?
2 weeks.
A week and a half. We don't have much time. So if you haven't put into place how you're going to be successful at this time, it's not likely it can happen. I mean, you can pull miracles out of your pants, but the whole point is it shouldn't be down to the wire in the first place, right? How many of you would love to already be a distinguished club by April 1st? That's when we should be distinguished. We don't really have to worry about our membership usually until January or February. That's when you start thinking, okay, where is our membership and what do we need to do? So by the end of June, we're where we need to be. But when it's June 1st, that is not the time to be talking about it, right? So we need to be proactive if we want to avoid failure, but failure is not a bad thing. It's a good thing as long as we do what?
Learn.
Learn from it, right? That's the most powerful lesson we human beings learn from. And Toastmasters is set up specifically to be an environment where we can fail forward. And you learn in such a way where you don't get fired. Hopefully none of you are firing your Toastmasters, but anyways, we want to learn from failure. The biggest problem, though, is a lack of clear communication. That is the #1 inhibitor of successful delegation. That what they thought they were supposed to be doing is not what they were supposed to be doing. How many of us have noticed that communication or miscommunication happens a lot? When do we want to clear up a miscommunication, Kevin? How far off the path do we want them to be before we realize they are way off the path?
As quickly as possible, the moment of discovery.
Exactly. And if you can find out, perhaps they're not clear what the path is, when do we want to make that clarity obvious?
As soon as they're straying.
Exactly. That's what these TLIs are all about. It's the beginning of understanding the path we're going to be going through over the next year and how to get on that path and stay on that path to being a successful club. And clear communication, which means you have to repeat back the understanding to confirm what they understood, and they have to do the same. Another thing is, and I think everyone can agree here, we're all pretty overloaded. And how many of you as leaders fear giving an assignment to somebody because they're already overloaded and it seems like an imposition, so you just have to take it on yourself? I was actually told this by our district director last year. I asked her, why did you have someone, you brought somebody in as a middleman between me and you to communicate what I'm doing with my continuing education program? Why did you bring someone in that I have to communicate with who will communicate to you? Well, I know how overwhelmed you are. So you're thinking I don't want to communicate to you directly? That's not going to fix the problem. And so that's not how to fix this. We just have to figure out if they're overloaded, can you help them lighten their load? And Hetty, how do you even know what their load is?
You can't.
Well, I have done all of the leadership offices, so I can help somebody and mentor them to their success. But they do have to actually do what I suggest that they do.
Ah, okay.
And I have to keep checking to make sure that they do that.
And how do you know? Because I know when people feel like they're overloaded, everybody's overloaded. Who gets to define if you are overloaded?
Well, I feel it. And so I try to share the knowledge with someone to show them how to do it. And then hopefully they will continue to do it.
And our job as leaders, Hetty, is to help people prioritize, because how many of us are overloaded by everything that needs to get done when everything is not equally important? Learning how to prioritize, and sometimes we're better at prioritizing than maybe they are. So one thing that's helpful is for us as team members to help people to prioritize what they're focusing on. So one of the things we want to prioritize in a Toastmasters club is what it's going to take to be distinguished. One of the reasons why we have the Moments of Truth program is to look at honestly, how strong is our club in these 6 areas? And we should take an honest look at how we need to strengthen our clubs. But you have to get feedback from somebody to know where that is and how that is. You need to ask questions. And so please don't hesitate to delegate just because you fear, well, they're so busy in their lives. I have a VPE in one of my clubs who's very, very busy in their lives. So since they're so busy, they don't have time to make sure that the meeting minutes and the agendas are filled because they're very busy in their professional lives. But they're the VPE. What's one of their primary jobs is VPE?
The program.
Make sure that the agenda is full. Exactly, Myra. But could you do it differently, as some clubs do, and have the VPE delegate to the Toastmaster of that particular meeting and say, your job is to make sure you get RSVPs from everybody for your meeting so we know who's going to be there, and make sure that all the assignments are done and that the speakers not only are prepared for their speeches and following their pathways, program, but also make sure they have communicated with their evaluators about their speeches before they give it. And put it all in the hands of the Toastmaster, which is a lot of work for that Toastmaster, but just for that meeting. And how many of our club members should be playing Toastmaster over the course of a year?
All of them.
Everybody. So the VPE doesn't actually have to do the job of filling the schedule and staying on top of the agenda. That can be the Toastmaster. It's all about the approach, but delegate to people. And the biggest problem of all is some people don't know how to delegate. So I'm going to give you a 9-step checklist you can go over that will help you at being more effective in how you delegate. So I will just check here at, I think we had a question or something. No, just some simple comments in the chat, just making sure I haven't missed anything. Any questions so far about the barriers, the things that keep us from delegating? And in discussing these barriers, you always want to have a way to get around them, such as if you lack the resources, figure out how to make do with what you have, but still make it happen. If you distrust people, I mentioned in the last seminar that one of my biggest lessons in life is when I'm faced with fear, that fear is telling me or communicating to me, your job is to figure out a way around this, figure out a way over it, but you still have to make it happen. That's what we do in Toastmasters. So you find a way to utilize whatever resources you've got and you make it work. And if you don't trust people, you move through that fear and you still assign people so that you can trust. And I'll give you a simple method in a bit on how to do that. If you're fearing that, well, gosh, they're going to do it better than me, so I have to do it so that you won't think that I don't, that I'm not as good. Some people are a little bit insecure. This is a good time to look at your insecurities and say, face that ego and deal with it. Everybody has different talents and different skills, and some are going to be better than yours. We all are like that. We all have our own unique talents and skills that set us apart. Let people shine. Sometimes they're going to be much better than you. But there is no excuse for there's no excuse for miscommunication. So we need to make sure we're communicating clearly. So don't assume. Always ask. And if your team is feeling overloaded, you might want to help them with reprioritizing, but they must get certain work done, especially work that you're delegating to them or that they've taken on. There is no good excuse for not getting done what you promised to do, right, Myra?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to show you how to hold them accountable. But we do have to know how to delegate. So here's some keys to delegation that will help. So I look at this the same at work when I'm teaching professionally. So the people on my team, the people in my clubs are my employees in many ways. Everybody is. So one thing is if I'm delegating to somebody, do they have the skills and authority and the authority to make decisions? Because how many of you don't want them coming back to you every time a decision needs to be made? You know, do you think I should call this person? Do you think I should email them versus text them? Who can make that decision best? They can. Always put it back on them. Give them the authority to make these decisions if you're going to give them if you're going to be delegating these responsibilities. Give them the authority. But what if they don't have the skills? I don't know how to do that. I'm not really good at that. What do you
They,
do? What was that, Hetty?
they will learn it if you show them how to do it. They will learn it.
So either you can do it, you can coach them, or who else could do that in the club?
Anybody else that knows?
And should they have a mentor at times?
Yes.
So if everyone in your club has a mentor, get the mentor to teach them those skills. So, but not having the skills is not a good excuse. I will teach you those skills, and or somebody will. What if we don't have the resources? Well, we just talked about that. You find a way around it. You find, how many of you as a club don't have much money, but you figure out how to get things done anyways?
We do.
Yeah. So you figure it out. You be creative. That's what the last seminar was all about, was creativity. So you solve these problems in a creative way. Number 3, let's see, where were we here? There we go. Understand that they are accountable for the project or task. Now, this is tricky because how many of you have assigned a task to someone, but they didn't think that they were responsible for it? Was there a miscommunication? What do you think, Myra?
Yeah.
I didn't know you expected me to bring in four more new members before the end of December. It's like, but you're the VPM. That's part of your job description and part of the DCP. Your part of this is you're supposed to bring in 8 new members minimum into the club. And bringing them in the first half of the year means 4 by December. We'd like to aim for that. That doesn't mean they have to do it perfectly, but, and they don't have to be the ones to bring the new members in. Who has to help them bring the new members in? I heard it, Michelle, but although you're on mute.
Everybody.
Everybody. We're all responsible for helping our clubs to grow. We all know people, or we can reach out to people. And if you don't know how to do that, you learn. It can't just be me going to the networking events. Everybody should be doing things where there's opportunities to meet people and talk up Toastmasters. So, but here's how to make sure that people are accountable for the task. When you assign a task for somebody, they have to get it done. My big question I want to ask to y'all, and I'll ask Myra here. Myra, whose plan should it be if they are going to get this task done? Should it be their plan or should it be your plan as the president?
It should be their plan.
Exactly. Now, can anyone tell me why it needs to be their plan? There are benefits. So let's say, for instance, Myra, have you ever had a boss who wanted you to do it their way?
Yes.
And when they want you to do it their way, and you do it their way, and it works, don't you feel wonderful?
Yeah. I don't know.
let me ask you the different question. Let's say the boss lets you come up with your own way to get it done as long as it gets done. Are you more willing to put energy into it if it's your plan?
Yes.
Do you feel more accountable if it's your plan to make sure it succeeds?
Yes.
When your plan works and succeeds, how do you get to feel?
Proud, and
it's the #1 motivator that's out there, and I can't give that to you. Only you can feel proud. So when you do it your way, you feel much more proud than if you do it my way, right?
yes.
And can I hold you accountable when you tell me, here's my plan for getting this done, and I agree it's a good plan, so go ahead and get it done. Can I now hold you accountable
Yes.
for your plan? 100%. If I make you do it my way, what could you say if you tried it my way and it didn't work?
Well, they can throw it back at you.
Yeah, don't blame me. You told me to do it that way.
Mhm.
So if you don't want to have these things happen, always make them come up with their plan. You can even do this with small children. You could have a 4-year-old make their own decisions for themselves about how they want to dress, how they want to do certain things. It's just that their plan has to work for you as well. Because do you need to support their plan?
Yes.
Yeah. So you want them to come up with a plan, but it's also got to be a plan that works well for you. So it's got to be a plan that you clearly can support. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a bit. But can you see how that when they come up with the plan to solve their problems, they come up with the solution, then they're more accountable. Which then there's another little secret I can teach you guys, which is, what if they don't have a plan? What if they say, I don't know how to do this? I don't know how to approach it. Now,
Help
do you
them
want
build
to
the
tell them?
plan.
What was that, Kevin?
Help them build their plan.
Exactly. One thing to avoid is don't give them the solution to their plan. You only give them options and let them choose which one they think is going to be the best plan to get it done. You can guide them toward the best option. Many parents do that. A parent should not tell kids what to do, but they should guide them toward the best options they think will be best to get this job done. But the whole point is you want to give them options. Now, how many options do you need to give people before it's a choice? Well, we'll go through them. Okay. So Michelle, look, I'll give you one choice. Does that sound like an option? Or does that sound like a choice? I'll give you one option.
No, you need to have at least two.
At least two. So how's this sound, Michelle? Okay, you can either do it my way or you can go somewhere else.
Hmm.
I guess that's an option, but it's not a very,
It's not a good option, is it? Neither one of those. So it has to be at least three options. So our job as leaders is to give people lots of options on how they could solve their problems in case they don't have solutions. And there's always many options. But they should always choose, because then you can hold them accountable. Does everybody get that?
Mhm.
Next, have the communications been clearly communicated, clearly communicated the expectations. That's another point. If as a leader, our job is to make certain that it's clear. And the only way you can do that is we have to go back and forth. It has to be a two-way conversation where we're both in agreement. Number 5, have I, as the leader, provided all the information they need to succeed? Only they can tell me. So when would be the best time, Myra, for someone to let me know that they're not sure how to proceed? When should
Right
they let me know? Right away. So Myra, do you ever have some people who don't want to tell you they're not sure how to succeed or proceed?
Yeah.
So you need to make sure they know it's an open door policy when you are stuck. Because Kevin, how long do you want people to be stuck before they fail?
As little as possible.
Yes. So if they're stuck and they don't know where to turn, what should they do, Kevin?
Come back to you and get some advice.
Should I make that clear to them at the very start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because there are going to be people on your team who are going to try to say, I can't come to you to figure this out. I just got to do it on my own. And then they end up failing. You don't want that happening. Although in Toastmasters, we can allow it to happen, but you don't want to. Next, have we set realistic deadlines? And who gets to decide, Kevin, if we've set realistic deadlines? Us or them? Who gets to decide what realistic is?
Well, they are going to decide if it's realistic, but you may have time constraints that require it to get done at a certain time. So you need to get their buy-in on the deadline. So
Exactly.
ultimately it comes back to them deciding if the deadline is going to be met or not.
And this is why, as leaders, you never want to give people your true deadline. Because if it's your true deadline and you can't fix it after there's been a failure, you don't want to do that. Because remember, I mentioned at the very beginning before we started this program about Parkinson's law that tasks expand to fill the time allotted. And if you give someone 2 weeks for something that should only take them a few days, you know it's going to take most of them more than 2 weeks. And if all you had was 2 weeks and the deadline, like June 30th is a drop dead deadline. By midnight, June 30th, it cannot be fixed. So your deadline is going to be June 1st or June 15th. That's your real deadline. Because if we need to fix something, we need time to do that. So always put in some cushion time there, I would say. But if they think that's not enough time, ask questions and figure out or negotiate what will work best for both of us. Because whatever they plan to do has to work for us as well, correct? If we're going for the results. And last things is, remember, schedule periodic check-ins. No matter how well you can trust that someone's going to get the job done, you don't want someone saying, oh, you don't need to check in with me. Because now if they've proven themselves many times over, like if I've given an assignment to Hetty, and every single time she's always been not only on time, but had it ready before the time, and it was excellent every time. So I trust her implicitly. So she might be able to say, oh, you don't need to check in. Maybe so. But I'd feel more comfortable knowing where we are with some progress updates. How many of you would agree? So who should come up with this plan for what's the right amount of check-ins? Because how many of us, and Myra, you brought this up at the beginning, how many of us fear that we might be micromanaging them? And Myra, who gets to decide if you're micromanaging them? You or them?
They,
They do. So their perspective is important. So have them come up with the check-in plan. What's the right amount do you think is needed for you to keep me up to date on your progress? Then they create a plan. Now their plan has to work for you, so we need to negotiate it so it works well for both of us. But if we come up with a plan and they agree to the plan and we follow their plan, can they ever complain about micromanagement?
no,
This is one of the reasons why I think we as officers need to be working with our club officers, like meeting at least once a month. Certainly not any more than every 6 or any less than every 6 weeks. But schedule that check-in, but do it according to the way they think will work best. It's just that plan also has to work well for us, so we might need to negotiate it a bit. And number 8, provide timely feedback. Kevin and I were talking about that just a little earlier. The moment you start to notice that they're falling behind and what their metrics are, what they were going to achieve and when, my concern is, what are we going to do to get us back on track? Get us back moving forward. And that's usually what I do with the club by April in a Toastmaster year. By April, I want to, okay, we're down to our last quarter. Actually, not last quarter, last 1/3 of, I like the last 1/3 because that gives us 4 months. April, May, June, that gives us 3 months. So it's only the last quarter to get this done. That's your make it or break it quarter. But timely feedback is check in long before then. And lastly, come up with things that make people feel valued. Reward their success. That means you want to, I teach people a little simple method about praise that has instant success. When you praise people in a way when they're not expecting it, because when people do things, you always thank them, but then wait after you thank them and come back to that issue later that day or the next day or a day or so later, and then praise them specifically about what it was they did. So they may not remember, oh, that was a couple days ago, and you're saying, hey, do you have a second? So I might come up to Hetty and say, hey, Hetty, do you have a second? I wanted to talk to you about something. And she's like, yeah, what is it? Do I have her attention? Yeah. So, hey, I just wanted to say, I was so impressed how you got that report into me a week early, and you did a beautiful job with it. It was very accurate, and I got it well before the deadline. I wish the rest of my officers would do that quality of work for me and it make my life run a lot smoother, but I know I can always count on you, and I just want to say how much I appreciate that. So thanks. And then I head out. Now, was this a one-way or a two-way conversation?
It's one way.
It's one way. I'm just going to hit you with praise and walk away and leave you stunned, thinking, wow, that was nice. Will they remember that?
Yes.
Will they feel valued for what they did? Will they be more willing to step in and do even more?
yes,
So when you praise people for the success, it builds their confidence, makes them more committed, and builds the team in general, and solidifies the relationship you have with them. So, and the biggest secret of all is that it's simple to delegate. You only need 2 things to be able to trust that they're going to get it done. Number 1, I need to know that they have a clear strategic plan for how they're going to achieve this. I need to know they have a plan. So that's the first thing I'm going to ask people is, so what's your plan? And of course, there are a lot of benefits from it being their plan. Question or comment? Yeah. So, and keep in mind that not only do I need to know they have a plan, but I want them to explain to me how their plan is going to work in such a way where I see it's going to get the results, because they already think it's going to get the results, but I have to be able to agree with them. Yes, I can support that plan. It's a win-win. Now they've come up with a plan. They've shown me how the plan's going to work. Now my job is just to follow up and hold them accountable. How much easier is it to hold people accountable when it's this simple? So that's my key to being successful as a manager. That's my key to being successful as a leader in Toastmasters, no matter what your job is. But we have to be willing to have a clear plan and make sure that that plan is going to get the results that we're going for, and that we're going to trust that they're going to get it done. And there are times when we need to find out, so what's going on when it's not getting done? Because one thing you want to make sure, Myro, is that when you do approach people who are not getting it done, perhaps the most typical reason why that happens is there was likely a miscommunication. And if there was a miscommunication, who's at fault for the miscommunication if they didn't follow the directions that we went through at the beginning? Always be willing to take responsibility and apologize for your part of the miscommunication. I must not have been as clear as I thought, and I do apologize. People don't like it when you make them wrong, but are they okay if you're the one who didn't get it, or that you were the one who was wrong? They're willing to work with you if you do that first. So we've always got to be the bigger person as a leader and to model the way. And that means the moment you notice a miscommunication, always be willing to clear that up by saying, I see there's been a miscommunication and I do apologize. Let's see if we can clear this up now. So yeah, go ahead, Myra.
So this is the former teacher in me, but is there like a format, a template for making a clear strategic plan that my officers can follow, fill in?
It's good that you asked that, because how many of you are familiar with the club success plan? At the beginning of a year, it's very detailed. And at the very beginning of the year, every one of your officers can go through and figure out, how are we going to bring in 4 new members over the next couple months, and then 4 more new members so that we get the points we need? How are we going to make sure people are following pathways? Make sure that people have mentors. The club success program lays it out. How will you get all 10 of the distinguished club program points over the course of your year? And when are you going to do it? It's the perfect SMART plan, the SMART. So, it's strategic. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and you have a clear timetable on how you're going to get that done. So I would say, start your new year with coming up with a club success plan that shows how you're going to get this done and who's going to do what and when they're going to do it. And then you just hold them accountable to that plan.
Mhm.
Other questions or comments? Well, great. I've got us right at 9 o'clock. I appreciate you guys being here. It's been a pleasure working with y'all. I'm always available should y'all have any questions. If you see my name here, Bart Loeser, put a TM Toastmaster in front of Bart Loeser at gmail.com. I'm easy to reach. You always can come to me if you need some advice. As I said, I'm a professional trainer for managers, leaders of all kinds, as well as teams at every level. I can help you with any of the challenges or problems that you're dealing with, and I'm always happy to do so. So please do feel free to come to me. I coach people all the time, and I'm happy to do so here in Toastmasters. One of my few times I'll do it pro bono, but I'm happy to do that. And I appreciate you guys taking your time, and we'll see you soon, and good luck with your leadership in the next year. Thank you.